Everybody's attention, please. Well, I'm not going to stand up here for too long. I'm Ken Medlock again. You're going to hear more from me after lunch, as well as Charlie Williams, who's the Executive Director for the Center for Offshore Safety. He's going to come up and introduce our keynote speaker for lunchtime.
So it's a great honor for me to introduce Phil. I've known Phil since he was a boy, and so he and I worked at Shell together for a long time. And he promised not to tell the real stories about me, so I'm not going to tell the real stories about him. And but Phil's 31 years with Shell. 15 years of those have really been in emergency response and regulatory and government affairs. And he's a graduate of the University of Arkansas. He has a BS in civil engineering. He worked the first 15 years in Shell in various engineering and operations jobs with continuing increase in responsibility. But what he's really an expert at and what he's really famous for is what he does now. And he's the general manager for emergency management for Shell, and he has upstream and downstream in North and South America, including new ventures. And of course, he's worked on a lot of new ventures where there isn't any plan and isn't any infrastructure for emergency response. So he works on emergency response preparations, business continuity, and he works on crisis coordination for Shell. And he's also part of Shell's global network on oil recovery and spill response. And I can say it was a real honor for me to be able to work with him. He's helped me and saved me many times, and he does a terrific job. He's a real leader and really the calm, collected person that deals with these kinds of situations. And of course, when we think about that, a lot of times we do, especially this group, we think about responding to things like spills. Of course, we also he responds to things like hurricanes and other storms and other really now cybersecurity. As you know, this is a continuing bigger and bigger and more important job in Shell and many other places. So he's also he was in and out of government and regulatory affairs a little bit, but he keeps getting called back because he's so expert at relationships and really understanding that to work. And as you know, the key work in this business is really access, and access depends upon having the confidence of the public and the government. And he continuously gets called back in to fix and improve those processes, and he has them again now. So anyway, it's a real pleasure for me to introduce him, and I think it's going to be a real treat to hear from him because he is the preeminent expert in this field. Thanks, Phil.
Charlie, thank you. Too kind, too kind. And thank all of you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's been a great program so far. I'm going to provide perspective from the viewpoint of an offshore operator in the Gulf of Mexico. I want to thank the collective group of sponsors who put this on. Again, it's been a tremendous program. I know what it takes to put these on, so thank you for the efforts there. It's very much appreciated. After hearing this morning from the first panel, Luis and Carlos, I think we can all appreciate the enormous effort the Mexican government and legislature have made to enact this historic energy reform. It's truly remarkable. Mexico has created a solid framework to make energy sector more competitive and attractive to private investment while benefiting the Mexican people. And as we've heard this morning, and we'll hear later today, no one said this would be easy. There's a lot of difficulties, a lot of complexities ahead of us. When we look at game-changing opportunities such as Mexico, it's clear that we must work collaboratively across the spectrum, the full spectrum, with the host government, national companies, offshore service companies, regulators, many others to execute these opportunities. In fact, I'm sure none of us could do this alone. It's much too complex. I would like to focus today on collaboration. That's going to be key as it relates to safety performance and regulations, because collaboration and collective commitment using industry and regulators is key to delivering superior safety and environmental performance. And I think that, above all, is what is expected from us, from Mexico and her people. If you think about it, collaboration is really a mindset. It's a way of viewing the world and how we work together in it for positive outcomes, really. It's a process, not an event. The inventor Henry Ford may have said it best when he said, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success." When it comes to the regulatory environment in the global oil and gas industry, that perspective really resonates. At Shell, we strive for and put an emphasis on welcoming, inviting, and even creating opportunities to work in partnership with anyone who can help us what we do it better. Our scenario planners tell us by the year 2050, we could be looking at a gap between the energy supply and demand that is almost equal to the size of industry's full impact of output just 10 years ago. That's a staggering thing to think about. We describe this gap, this tension between supply and demand, as a zone of uncertainty. It's uncertain because the energy decisions that we're making today will determine tomorrow's landscape. We have a huge opportunity to address this zone of uncertainty in ways that avoid unnecessary trade-offs and sacrifices. And we should all see it that way, as an opportunity. Capitalizing on this and promoting economical, safer, more responsible oil and gas exploration and production is what we need to do. It depends on us, all of us, regulators, operators, contractors, everybody, working together to do what our constituencies are depending on us to do and holding ourselves to our own high standards. Collaboration is a cornerstone of our approach to operating safely and responsibly. Safety begins at the top. Our leadership team, along with my colleagues around the world, are in constant communication about the safety culture we must have to operate as the responsible company that we are and aspire to be. Perhaps the clearest statement about the culture we aim to build comes in the core expectations we have for everyone who works for Shell. And these are our golden rules. They're comply, intervene, and respect. It's comply for the laws, the regulations, and the standards. It's intervene into unsafe situations or non-compliant situations, and respect the environment and our neighbors. We set up clear and firm rules that are designed to protect the personal safety of the employees and contractors that work for us. We expect our people to know these rules and to follow them. And if a person chooses not to follow these rules, they are essentially choosing not to work for Shell. Shell has developed internal standards and design criteria that we apply globally to our operations independent of government regulations. We also work closely with the standards organizations like API to develop robust industry standards. We believe regulatory systems work best when robust industry standards are incorporated by reference into the regulations. An organization's systems, processes, and culture must all work together. Unfortunately, sometimes the truest test of how well an organization is integrating these three things comes during an actual incident. An example of this for Shell, in our own experience, is when the drill ship Culloch lost its tow line and ran aground when it was being towed from Alaska to Seattle, Washington. It was a significant event for us, and we're grateful there were no environmental damages and no significant injuries. The Shell Americas response team went to work immediately to gain control of the incident, to minimize risk and impacts. We worked hard, we worked hand in hand with the U.S. Coast Guard, the Alaska State of Environmental Conservation, and the Kodiak Island Borough under the Incident Command System, or ICS. This is called, in ICS, this is called Unified Command. And the ultimate success depended on this collaboration, this unification. We have and will continue to apply any relevant findings from this incident across the operations at Shell, and we will also share them with others in the industry as appropriate. The fact of the matter is we are continually looking for opportunities to get better. This includes looking at incidents that occur on other operators' projects, for example, the Macondo incident. We work hard every day to avoid the types of things that may have precipitated this event. And we took the opportunity to assess our operations in light of what we learned from that incident and have continued to apply relevant learnings to our operations around the world. Shell is one of the founding members of the Marine Well Containment Company, which was formed in 2010 after the Macondo spill to focus on intervention capabilities in the U.S. Gulf of Mexico. We are also a key contributor and supporter of the Center for Offshore Safety, a for the industry, by the industry organization. It's a U.S. initiative, but with a number of global corporations as its members. Its focusing is improving safety within the deepwater industry as a whole. The Center for Offshore Safety will collaborate internationally in its work to continually improve safety and environmental management systems. I mentioned our industry's learnings from the Macondo spill and our involvement in creating the Marine Well Containment Company, or MWCC, which is now comprised of 10 major operating company members. I'd like to share an example of a significant effort where the learnings were put together in practice through collaboration. In early 2012, Shell was asked by the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, BSEE, to initiate a demonstration of the newly built MWCC capping stack. This capping stack was some 30 feet tall and weighed 100 tons. We agreed to act as the responsible party and work with BSEE and MWCC to design the exercise, with each entity having a say in the desired activities and objectives in order to produce a positive outcome that would be satisfactory to all. After months of design and preparation, the first ever full-scale deployment of critical well control equipment was demonstrated to respond to a potential subsea loss of well control in the deepwater U.S. Gulf of Mexico, and it was deemed a success by all involved. An extensive lessons learned effort was undertaken after the exercise with involvement from all parties and shared with industry. Due to the collaboration that provided the successful outcome and learnings, we now have the capability to respond effectively to deepwater subsea loss of well control. And in the 2+ years since the 2012 exercise, extensive advancements and further capabilities in subsea well containment have been put in place. These systems and capabilities now, in fact, are required in order to drill a well in the Gulf of Mexico. Another relevant example of collaboration is the establishment of the Joint Contingency Plan between the United Mexican States and the U.S. regarding pollution of marine environments by discharge of hydrocarbons or other hazardous substances. This is referred to as the MEXUS Plan, and you heard about that this morning. It was first agreed upon in the year 2000. The plan provides for bilateral cooperation in response to pollution incidents that could affect the coastal waters shared by either country, or where the impact of the waters of one country would be of such magnitude that would justify the request for assistance to the other country. Since the signing of the MEXUS Plan, the United States and Mexico, through the U.S. Coast Guard and Mexican Navy, have actively engaged in building cooperation by conducting joint activities, including joint exercises. Shell has actively supported these collaborative efforts, including sponsoring exercises in 2004 and again in 2012. The MEXUS Plan is a very good example of collaboration that results in valuable processes and tools, both governments and for the oil companies to research, participate, better understand, and improve our operational response capabilities in a coordinated way. Preparing for and executing a safe operation is only one side of the coin. The other is having effective safety regulations. At the risk of oversimplifying it, effective safety regulations have these hallmarks. They're performance-based, they're locally relevant, they're created by best practices, sharing, and collaboration, and they're improved over time. While the international deepwater community has taken steps in the right direction, we should ask, what are we doing to further innovate in this area? What are we doing to take safe operations to the next level? I think the answer lies in three parts. focus, consistency, and decision-making based on sound science. First, operators and regulators need to focus on what we do best and then go and do it. What regulators can do best, among other things, is to challenge the industry to continually innovate, to set high standards for continuous improvement, and to monitor industry's performance and hold us accountable. One of the things that Shell brings to the table is that since we operate around the world, we see and interact with regulators of all kinds. And what we see is that when regulators work closely with national associations and with engaged industry partners, those relationships produce effective regulatory regimes. Second, it is important that there is a consistency by regulatory authorities in the way standards are incorporated and used. Clearly, there can be a prescriptive base to regulation, certainly, but regulation should move more to a goal-setting regime in which industry standards are used by the operators and referenced and applied in preparing safety cases and developing safety management systems. Additionally, on the safe regulations and standards side of the coin, operators must make optimal use of our standards programs so that we can keep raising the performance bar by continuously improving those standards, not sticking to the comfortable status quo. Perhaps nowhere is the need for consistency more apparent or more important than in the area of prevention. Third, I would encourage regulators to base regulatory decision-making on credible and comprehensive environmental science. Respecting the environment is one of Shell's core values, and we work diligently to understand the environment. We do this through accurate baseline knowledge of the environment, from the physical conditions to the geology to the ecosystems, and effective, innovative programs to collect long-term data for accurately assessing impacts and changes, both natural and man-made. The Macondo incident emphasized the importance for strong baseline data and necessity for effective long-term monitoring. We fully understand this and are currently partnering with regulators on environmental research to ensure our actions are protective of the environment. To conclude my comments today, I'll tell you that I'm an optimist. I believe operators, contractors, and regulators agree, certainly more than we disagree. We share a commitment to doing things right and doing them well. Sometimes we just differ on how to get there, but we certainly don't differ in ways that are insurmountable. Regulators want operators to minimize risk. That's understandable and important and justifiable. Operators want the freedom to use approaches that they believe will safely achieve optimal results. That's also justifiable. After all, we know where the opportunities and improvements lie. We know that technology says we should be able, what technology says we should be able to do and how we should be able to operate. Let's focus on what we do best, each of us. Strive for collaboration, consistency, and quality, and move forward. It is always very easy to find short-term solutions, but so many times those solutions are not well thought out or sustainable. I would like all of us to put our very best effort into this important area of collaboration, because we only have success if it is shared and sustainable. And that's all the prepared comments I have for today. Thank you. I think we're going to do some Q&A. We're going to do some Q&A.
If anybody has any questions, please raise your hand.
There's some mics coming around. There they are. Put everybody to sleep. How was the dessert, by the way? It was good.
Has there been discussion about moving the marine well containment capabilities into Mexico waters?
Yes, there has. I know that MWCC has been in discussions with the Mexican government, and those discussions are continuing. I think it's a lot less contingent now, and contentious, I should say, because there are a lot more stacks. There's a lot more equipment in the world. There's several stacks now in the Gulf of Mexico. There have been stacks deployed around the world, in fact. So I think it's going to be a less contentious issue now. But yes, those discussions are occurring. Hi.
Asked Charlie Williams for the past several years if Pemex could be a member of the Marine Well Containment Company. And Charlie has consistently said, I don't think so. So what's your answer to that?
Well, I think it's a similar question to the first in that MWCC is looking, they're an organization that looks to, make sure that we can effectively contain wells. We all understand that if there's an incident, not only in the Gulf of Mexico, but in the world, it has knock-on effects to all of us. We want to minimize the environmental impacts globally. So I think MWCC is open to that. I haven't been involved. I'm not on the executive committee for Shell on MWCC, but I know that those discussions are occurring. My feel is if we were operating a well in Mexico, we certainly would have the fortitude to bring to bear the capping equipment that's needed, whether that comes from MWCC or one of the other global capping stacks that we're a part of. That would happen, for sure. Other questions?
Well, join me in thanking Phil for his time.
Thank you.